Captain Emma Foster stood at the bridge window of the UES Defiant, watching Jupiter's swirling storms below. Her ship was just one of 50 that formed humanity's last line of defense. The great gas giant's orange and white clouds seemed peaceful, but she knew better. Somewhere out there, in the darkness beyond, the enemy was coming. "Captain, message from command," said Officer Steve Wilson, his voice tight with tension. "The Arcturian fleet has just jumped out of the system. They're abandoning their position." Emma's fingers tightened on the rail until her knuckles turned white. The Arcturians were the last of their alien allies to leave. Now Earth stood alone. "Put Admiral Hayes on the main screen," she ordered, turning to face the display. The Admiral's weathered face appeared, looking as tired as she felt. "Captain Foster, I assume you've heard about the Arcturians," he said, not waiting for her greeting. "That leaves us as the only defense force in the entire sector." "Sir, why? Why did they all leave? The Centaurians, the Rigelians, and now the Arcturians. They know what's coming. They know what the Void Swarm does to inhabited worlds." The Admiral's face darkened. "That's exactly why they left, Captain. Fear, pure and simple fear. The Void Swarm has destroyed 12 worlds in the last 6 months. No one's been able to stop them." Emma looked at her bridge crew. Young faces, all of them human, all of them scared but standing their ground. "So what are our orders, sir?" "We fight," Hayes said simply. "Earth has approved the activation of Project Prometheus." The bridge went silent. Everyone had heard rumors about Project Prometheus, the classified weapons system that violated every treaty Earth had signed with the Galactic Council. Using it would make them outcasts, but being outcasts was better than being dead. "Lieutenant Anna Peters," Emma called to her weapons officer. "Begin calibrating our systems for Prometheus integration. Mr. Wilson, send word to the fleet. We hold this line no matter what." The next few hours were a blur of activity. Engineers worked to install the new weapons protocols while scouts reported the Void Swarm's steady advance through the outer solar system. They had already passed Pluto's orbit, a massive cloud of biomechanical horrors larger than any they'd encountered before. Emma studied the tactical display, watching the red dot that represented the swarm grow larger. The creatures looked like a nightmare mix of insects and machines, each one the size of a small ship. They consumed everything in their path, breaking down matter to create more of themselves. "Captain," called Dr. Lisa Cooper, the scientist who'd been sent to oversee the Prometheus installation. "The system is ready for activation, but there's something you need to know. The power output. It's unlike anything we've tested before. We're not entirely sure what it will do." Emma nodded grimly. "At this point, Doctor, we're out of options. Our allies are gone. Earth's solar system is all we have left, and I will not let those things get any closer to home." The bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency as the minutes ticked by. Finally, the sensor officer broke the silence. "Multiple contacts," he shouted. "The Void Swarm just jumped into the Jupiter defense zone, counting over 10,000 units." Emma took a deep breath and straightened her uniform. This was it. The moment humanity would either prove itself or fall like so many others. "All ships, battle formations," she commanded, her voice steady and clear. "This is what we trained for. Earth is counting on us. The Prometheus systems are authorized for full deployment. Remember, we are the last line. We are all that stands between these monsters and our home." The first wave of the swarm appeared on their visual displays. A horrifying mass of chitinous bodies and metallic appendages, their biomechanical forms reflecting the dim sunlight. "All ships, lock targets," Emma ordered. "Humanity stands its ground. Fire on my mark." As the enemy closed in, Emma thought about all the species that had run away. Maybe they were right to be afraid. But humanity had made its choice. They would fight. Fire. The space around Jupiter lit up as 50 human ships unleashed their forbidden weapons, and the battle for Earth's survival began. 3 days after the first battle at Jupiter, Strategic Officer Daniel Wright sat in a dark room aboard the UES Defiant, watching old alien transmissions. His eyes burned from lack of sleep, but he couldn't stop. He had to know why everyone had abandoned Earth. The screen showed the fall of New Centauri, the first major world lost to the Void Swarm. The recording was shaky, but clear enough to see the horror. Then something caught his eye. "Computer, pause and enhance Sector 4, he said, leaning forward. There, in the corner of the frame, he saw it, a Void Swarm unit deliberately avoiding a Centaurian temple. "Captain Foster needs to see this," he muttered, downloading the data to his tablet. On the bridge, Captain Emma Foster was dealing with the aftermath of their first engagement. The Prometheus weapons had worked better than anyone expected, destroying hundreds of Void Swarm units. But the enemy had retreated instead of being destroyed, something they had never done before. "Captain," Daniel called as he rushed onto the bridge. "I found something. The Void Swarm, they're not just mindless destroyers. They're looking for something." Emma turned from her command chair. Her uniform was wrinkled from 2 straight days on the bridge. "Show me." Daniel played the enhanced footage on the main screen. "See how they avoid certain structures. I found similar patterns in recordings from 6 different worlds. They're searching for something specific." "But what does this have to do with everyone abandoning us?" asked Dr. Lisa Cooper, who had been working nonstop to improve the Prometheus system. "Because," Daniel said, pulling up more files, "the Galactic Council knows what the swarm is looking for. Look at these transmissions. Every species that left received the same coded message from the Council first." Emma's face hardened. "Can you decode it?" "Already did." Daniel's fingers flew over the controls. "It's a warning. The Council says the Void Swarm is searching for something called the Origin Point. They think it's on Earth." The bridge went silent. Lieutenant Anna Peters spoke first from her weapons station. "So they all left us to die, to save themselves?" "No," Daniel said, shaking his head. "They left because the Council ordered them to. The Council thinks if the swarm finds what they're looking for, they'll leave the galaxy alone. They're sacrificing Earth to save everyone else." Emma stood up, her voice firm. "Well, that's not happening. Dr. Cooper, what's the status of the Prometheus system?" Lisa looked up from her console. "The first test exceeded our expectations, but we had power fluctuations in all ships. We need to stabilize the output before we can use it again. But I found something interesting in the data. The weapons didn't just damage the swarm units, they disrupted their connection to each other." "Their connection?" Emma asked. "Yes, they operate like a hive mind. That's why they retreated. We hurt their ability to communicate. Give me 2 days, and I can modify the system to target that weakness specifically." Daniel brought up another display. "We might not have 2 days. Look at these sensor readings. The swarm is regrouping. There are more of them now, maybe twice as many as before." Emma walked to the front of the bridge, looking out at Jupiter's massive form. Earth's fleet had bloodied the enemy's nose, but now they knew the terrible truth. They weren't just fighting for survival. They were being sacrificed by the very alliance they had trusted. "Dr. Cooper, you have 1 day," she said. "Lieutenant Peters, I want every ship in the fleet running combat drills. Mr. Wright, keep digging. Find out everything you can about this origin point." She turned to face her crew. "The Galactic Council might have given up on Earth, but we haven't. If the swarm wants something on our planet, they'll have to get through us to get it." As the crew rushed to follow her orders, Emma looked at the tactical display showing the growing swarm of enemy units. The Council thought they could sacrifice Earth to save themselves. They were about to learn that humans didn't give up so easily. And somewhere in the darkness of space, the Void Swarm prepared for its next attack, drawn inexorably toward the secret that lay hidden on humanity's homeworld. Admiral Robert Hayes stood in Earth's main defense control room, staring at the message from the Galactic Council. His hand shook with anger as he read it again. Final warning. Any use of forbidden weapons will result in permanent exile from the Galactic Alliance. He deleted the message with a sharp gesture. Send word to the Jupiter fleet, he told his communications officer. Tell them to proceed as planned. The Council can go to hell. Out near Jupiter, Lieutenant John Martinez piloted his small fighter through the debris field left by the last battle. His ship was tiny compared to the capital vessels, but it was fast and quiet. Perfect for what he had in mind. Scout Team Alpha, stay close, he whispered into his radio. The 5 ships following him were the best pilots in the fleet. Remember, we're just here to watch the swarm. No engaging unless absolutely necessary. They flew silently through space, their engines running dark. Captain Foster had given them one mission. Find out how the swarm was creating new units so quickly. The answer lay somewhere in this field of broken ships and dead swarm creatures. Contact, one of his pilots reported softly. 3 o'clock, 2,000 kilometers. John turned his head slowly. There in the distance, he saw them. Dozens of swarm units were gathering broken pieces of ships and their own dead. But they weren't just recycling the materials. They were changing them. Are you recording this? He asked his team. The swarm. They're not just building copies of themselves. They're adapting, learning from our weapons. Back on the UES Defiant, Dr. Lisa Cooper worked frantically at her station. The Prometheus system was ready, but she'd discovered something that changed everything. Captain Foster, she called out, I need you to see this immediately. Emma hurried over. She hadn't slept in 36 hours, but her eyes were alert. What is it? The swarm's communication network. It's not just for coordination. They're sharing everything they learn. Every battle makes them stronger. But look at this. Lisa pointed to a complex diagram. The Prometheus energy doesn't just disrupt their network. It overwrites it. We could potentially take control of their units. Before Emma could respond, the ship's alarms blared. Multiple swarm signatures detected. Officer Steve Wilson shouted. They're coming in fast, but something's different about their formation. The main screen showed the approaching enemy. The swarm units had changed. Their outer shells now had the same metallic composition as Earth's warships. They had adapted to resist standard weapons. Launch all fighters, Emma ordered. Get Lieutenant Martinez's team back here now. Dr. Cooper, is the new Prometheus modification ready? Yes, but we haven't tested it. If something goes wrong, we're out of time, Emma said. Deploy it to all ships. This ends now. John Martinez and his team raced back toward the fleet, but the swarm was faster. 3 of their fighters were cut off, surrounded by the enemy. We'll hold them off, called one of the trapped pilots. Get that data back to the fleet. John's hands tightened on his controls. Like hell you will, he muttered. He spun his fighter around, diving straight into the swarm. New plan. Evasive pattern delta. We go home together or not at all. On the Defiance Bridge, Emma watched the fight unfold. Status of Prometheus deployment. Ready on all ships, Lisa reported. But Captain, this variant will affect a much larger area. We don't know if our fighters can get clear in time. Emma opened a channel to the fighters. Lieutenant Martinez, you have 30 seconds to clear the engagement zone. We're about to light up the sky. Negative, Captain. John's voice crackled through static. We've got them right where we want them. These bugs want to adapt. Let's give them something to adapt to. Emma looked at Lisa, who nodded grimly. Do it, the captain ordered. Full power to Prometheus. Let's show these creatures what happens when they corner humans. The space around Jupiter lit up again, but this time was different. The Prometheus energy spread like a web of lightning, connecting every swarm unit. For a moment, everything stopped. Then the swarm began to scream. The modified weapons didn't just disrupt their network, they forced their way into it. For the first time since they appeared, The void swarm knew fear. And in the middle of it all, John Martins led his team through the chaos, their small ships dancing between paralyzed swarm units, proving that humanity's strength wasn't just in its weapons, but in its unwavering spirit to never leave anyone behind. Dr. Lisa Cooper hadn't slept in 3 days. Empty coffee cups littered her lab aboard the UEAS Defiant as she stared at the test results from the last battle. What she saw both excited and terrified her. Major Brian Kelly, she called to the military officer assigned to her lab. Look at these readings from the captured swarm units. Brian walked over, his uniform crisp despite the chaos of recent days. What am I looking at, Doc? The Prometheus energy didn't just control them. It changed them at their core. We're not just fighting the swarm anymore. We're rewriting them. The lab door opened, and Captain Emma Foster walked in. Her face showed concern. Tell me you have good news, Dr. Cooper. The swarm is regrouping again, and they're bringing something big this time. Lisa pointed to her screens. I found out why the Galactic Council banned this technology. Prometheus doesn't just affect the swarm. It affects space itself. What do you mean? Emma asked. Watch this. Lisa activated a small containment field. Inside, a piece of captured swarm technology floated. She fired a tiny burst of Prometheus energy at it. The air around the field seemed to bend, like looking through water. The energy creates ripples in space-time. Lisa explained simply. Small ripples now, but if we increase the power. She paused, letting the implications sink in. Brian whistled softly. We could tear them apart at the atomic level, or tear ourselves apart. Lisa added, but I think I'd found a way to control it. Major Kelly's military experience helped me understand how to focus the energy like a precision weapon. Before Emma could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Steve Wilson's voice came over the intercom. Captain to the bridge. The swarm, they're back. And Mom, they'd brought something huge. Emma rushed to the bridge, Lisa and Brian close behind. The main screen showed a massive shape emerging from the darkness beyond Jupiter. It was like nothing they had seen before, a swarm construct the size of a small moon. They combined thousands of units into one giant organism, Lisa said, checking the readings. They're adapting faster than we thought possible. Emma took her command chair. Options. The normal Prometheus settings won't affect something that big, Lisa said. But if we use my new modifications, Captain, it could work, but the risk. The risk is losing Earth, Emma cut in. How long to prepare the system? 20 minutes to synchronize all ships. Lisa was already moving to her station. But Captain, we need to be closer. Much closer. Lieutenant Martinez, Emma called over the comm. Get your fighter squadron ready. I need you to run interference while we get into position. John's voice came back strong and clear. Already suiting up, Captain. My team will keep them busy. The next 15 minutes were a blur of activity. The fleet moved forward as one while fighters darted around them, keeping the smaller swarm units at bay. The massive construct grew larger on their screens, its surface writhing with activity. Energy built up in the target. Someone shouted, "They're charging some kind of weapon." 5 more minutes. Lisa called from her station. Major Kelly, route all power to the containment fields. Incoming fire, Steve yelled. The giant swarm construct fired, a beam of pure destruction cutting through space. 3 human ships vanished instantly. Now or never, Doc, Emma ordered. Lisa looked at Brian, who nodded. Together, they activated the modified Prometheus system. Every ship in the fleet fired at once. The energy beams connected, forming a web of light that enveloped the massive construct. Space itself seemed to twist and bend around it. Power levels critical, Brian reported. The containment fields are barely holding. The giant construct began to break apart, but not like before. This time, the very fabric of space tore open around it, creating a swirling vortex of energy. My God, Lisa whispered, we're not just destroying it. We're creating a temporary singularity. The construct twisted, stretched, and then imploded with devastating force. The blast wave hit the fleet like a hammer, but their shields held. When the light faded, nothing remained of the giant construct except scattered debris. The remaining swarm units fled in panic, their network overwhelmed by the power they had witnessed. Emma stood at her command station, watching the enemy retreat. Status report. 3 ships lost, Steve reported solemnly. But Dr. Cooper's modifications worked. The swarm, they're running scared. Lisa stared at her readings, her hands shaking. Captain, we did more than scare them. We just showed them that humanity can control forces they never dreamed of. And this is just the beginning. The bridge crew watched in silence as the last swarm units disappeared into deep space. They had won this battle, but everyone knew the war was far from over. Somewhere out there, the enemy was learning, adapting, and planning their next move. But now, for the first time, they were afraid of what humanity might do. Political officer Rachel Santos sat in her office on Earth, watching multiple screens light up with angry messages from the Galactic Council. After the last battle at Jupiter, every alien race was either furious or terrified of humanity. Maybe both. They're demanding we stop using the Prometheus weapon immediately, she told Admiral Hayes over a secure channel. They're threatening full sanctions against Earth. The Admiral's hologram flickered. Tell them to get in line. We've got bigger problems right now. He wasn't wrong. Rachel's main screen showed the latest battle footage. The Void Swarm had returned, and this time they brought 3 moon-sized constructs instead of just one. The Council is scared, Robert, she said, using the Admiral's first name. They say we're breaking laws of nature, not just their rules. And what about the laws of survival? He asked. Show them the casualty reports from our last fight. Rachel pulled up the numbers, her heart heavy. The victory at Jupiter had cost them dear. 3 ships destroyed, 12 fighters lost, over 200 dead. Each name on the list had a family, a story, a future that would never happen. Up in space, Captain Emma Foster was dealing with those losses personally. She stood in the Defiance Memorial Hall, adding new names to the wall. Behind her, Lieutenant John Martinez waited silently. "How's your squad holding up?" she asked without turning. "We're down to 7 fighters," he said quietly, "but every pilot still here is ready to fly." Emma finally turned to face him. "We lost a lot of good people, John." "Yes, ma'am, but we're still fighting. And after what Dr. Cooper's weapons did to that big construct, the swarm knows we can hurt them." A buzzer sounded. "Captain to the bridge." Steve Wilson's voice called over the intercom. "Dr. Cooper needs you immediately." They found Lisa in the middle of an argument with Major Brian Kelly. Her lab data floated on screens around them. "We can't fire the Prometheus array at full power again," Lisa was saying. "The space-time distortions are getting worse. Look at these readings from Jupiter's moons." Brian pointed to a different screen. "Those 3 massive constructs will be in range in 6 hours. If we don't use everything we've got, then we find another way." Lisa snapped. She turned to Emma. "Captain, the weapon is damaging the fabric of space itself. Each time we fire it, the tears get bigger. If we keep going, we might save Earth but destroy the solar system." Emma finished. She'd seen enough sci-fi to know where this was going. "Options. I have an idea," Lisa said, "but the Council will hate it even more than what we've already done." Before she could explain, Rachel Santos appeared on the main screen. "Captain Foster, we have a situation. The Arcturians are back." "The ones who abandoned us?" John asked. "Yes, but this time they're not running. Their entire defense fleet just dropped out of hyperspace near Saturn. They're offering to help." Emma's eyes narrowed. "Why?" "Because they saw what we did to that first construct. The Council is furious, but some of their member races are starting to think we might actually win this fight. And they want to be on the winning side," Brian said with disgust. Emma held up her hand for quiet. Dr. Cooper, you said you had an idea. Lisa nodded. The swarm adapts to everything we do, right? So let's give them something they can't adapt to. We sync the Prometheus array with the Arcturian shields. Their technology is defensive. Ours is offensive. Together, we could contain the space-time tiers, Brian finished, starting to understand. Use the distortions as a weapon without ripping space apart. But we'd have to trust the Arcturians, John pointed out. After they left us to die. Emma looked at the tactical display. The three massive swarm constructs were getting closer. Behind them, thousands of smaller units swarmed like angry wasps. The Arcturian fleet waited at Saturn, their intentions unknown. Rachel, she said to the screen, tell the Arcturians we accept their help. But make it clear, we lead this fight. They follow our plan. And if they refuse? Rachel asked. Emma's face hardened. Then they can watch what happens when humanity fights alone. Because we're not stopping. We're not running. The swarm wants to find something on Earth. Fine. Let them come find out why every species in the galaxy fears what we might become. The bridge crew straightened at her words. They had lost friends, family, comrades. But they had also proven something important. Humanity would not go quietly into the night. And now, with their weapons shaking the very foundations of spacetime, even their former allies were starting to understand just how dangerous humanity could be when pushed too far. The space between Jupiter and Saturn lit up like a new sun. Human and Arcturian ships fought side by side against the three massive swarm constructs. The combined fleet looked tiny compared to the moon-sized enemies, but they had something the swarm didn't expect: a plan. Arcturian shields at full power. Dr. Lisa Cooper called from her station on the Defiant. Major Kelly, sync the Prometheus array now. Brian Kelly's fingers flew over his console, synchronizing all ships. Captain, we're ready. Captain Emma Foster stood at the center of her bridge. The main screen showed their forces arranged in a complex pattern around the swarm constructs. It had taken 3 hours to get into position, while Lieutenant John Martinez's fighters kept the smaller swarm units busy. All ships, this is Captain Foster, she broadcast to the fleet. Fire on my mark. The largest swarm construct opened like a twisted flower, energy building at its core. But before it could fire, Emma gave the order. Mark. Every human ship fired their Prometheus weapons. At the same time, the Arcturian vessels projected their shields outward. The two technologies met in space, and something amazing happened. It's working, Lisa shouted. The shields are containing the space-time distortions. Power level stable. The combined energy formed a massive bubble around the three constructs. Inside, space itself began to twist and fold. The swarm units couldn't adapt because there was nothing to adapt to. They were caught in pockets of warped space-time. Direct hit on the first construct. Steve Wilson reported. It's breaking apart. But victory came with a price. One of the human ships got too close to the energy field. Its hull cracked, then split open like an egg. Emergency pods shot out into space as the ship died. John Martinez's voice crackled over the comm. Fighter Squad Alpha moving to rescue the pods. Requesting covert fire. Granted, Emma said. Dr. Cooper, can we contain this reaction? Lisa checked her readings. Yes, but we need to end this fast. The space-time bubble is starting to collapse. The second swarm construct tried to escape, but the Arcturian ships tightened their shield net. The massive creature writhed as portions of it existed in different moments of time simultaneously. Then something unexpected happened. Deep inside the energy field, the third construct started to change. Its surface rippled and reformed into something new. Captain. Dangle Wright called from his station. I'm picking up a signal from inside the construct. It's trying to communicate. Emma leaned forward. Put it through. A strange voice filled the bridge, like metal scraping on metal. We understand now. You are the ones we sought. What do you mean? Emma demanded. Why did you attack our worlds? We searched for those who could control space and time, the origin point, where our creators first learned these powers. Now we know. Humans are their children. The bridge crew looked at each other in shock. Lysa's eyes went wide. The banned technology, the Galactic Council's fears. They knew. They knew we had inherited this ability. The swarm construct's voice grew weaker. We thought to find tools. Instead, we found masters. We will return to deep space. You are not prey. You are the next. Its voice cut off as the construct collapsed in on itself. The other two were already breaking apart, their pieces scattered across space. The remaining swarm units started to retreat, not in panic like before, but in an orderly withdrawal. They were leaving by choice. Should we pursue? Brian asked. Emma shook her head. No, let them go. Let them tell others what they found here. She turned to Lisa. Doctor, what did they mean about us being the next? Before Lisa could answer, Rachel Santos called from Earth. Captain, you need to see this. The Galactic Council. They're all resigning. The member races are calling for new leadership. They're saying humanity should have a seat on the council. Emma looked out at the battle zone. Rescue ships were picking up survivors. The Arcturian vessels held position, their crews probably as shocked as the humans. And in the distance, the last of the Void Swarm vanished into deep space. Send word to Admiral Hayes, she said finally. Tell him the war is over. But I have a feeling our adventures are just beginning. Lisa stood at her science station, staring at the readings from the battle. Captain, if what the swarm said is true, if we really are descendants of some ancient race that could control space-time, then the Council was right to fear us, Emma finished. But they were wrong to abandon us. Because now everyone knows what humanity can do when we stand alone. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, the Void Swarm carried a message to the galaxy. Humanity had not just driven them back. They had proven themselves to be something far more important, the heirs to powers beyond imagination. 1 month after the final battle, the UES Defiant floated near Earth's moon. Captain Emma Foster stood in her dress uniform, looking out at the gathering of ships below. Vessels from every species in the galaxy had come for this historic day. Ready for your speech? Rachel Santos asked, joining her at the window. Emma smiled. Did you ever think we'd be here, hosting the first meeting of the new Galactic Council, on a space station built with both human and alien technology? No. Rachel checked her tablet. The Arcturians are already inside. They're proud to be our first official allies. The station was a marvel of engineering. Dr. Lisa Cooper had worked with alien scientists to combine their shield technology with humanity's Prometheus systems, creating something entirely new. They called it the Unity Station. Admiral Hayes's voice came over the comm. Captain Foster, it's time. Emma took a deep breath and headed to the main chamber. The room was massive, filled with representatives from 50 different species. Some had fought alongside humanity at the end. Others had run away. All were here now. She took her place at the podium, seeing familiar faces in the crowd. Lieutenant John Martinez sat with his remaining pilots, their dress uniforms showing new medals for bravery. Major Brian Kelly stood with Dr. Cooper, both now leading the new joint research team. 1 month ago, Emma began, we faced extinction. Not just humanity, but all of us. The Void Swarm came looking for something, and they found it, but not what they expected. The room was silent, every alien translator working to share her words. They thought they would find tools, leftover technology from those who came before. Instead, they found us, humanity, the descendants of those ancient builders who could shape space and time itself. She looked around the room, meeting eyes, stalks, and sensors of all kinds. Some of you feared us. Some still do. You were right to be cautious. The power we discovered in ourselves through the Prometheus array is dangerous. But you were wrong to abandon us. Daniel Wright, now Earth's chief intelligence officer, displayed images from the battles. The massive constructs, the space-time bubbles, the final retreat of the swarm. We stand here today, not as conquerors, not as victims, but as equals. Yes, humanity has inherited great power, but we've learned something more important: how to use it wisely. Lisa Cooper stood up, activating a hologram that showed the new combined technologies. This station is proof of what we can achieve together, Emma continued. Arcturian shields, Centaurian sensors, Regelian power systems, all working with human space-time technology. This is the future we choose. The Admiral nodded approvingly from his seat. The Void Swarm will return one day, not as enemies, but as watchers. They'll want to see what we do with our inheritance. All of us, not just humanity. Because what we discovered out there near Jupiter wasn't just humanity's power. It was our ability to share it, to work together even after betrayal. Rachel Santos stepped forward, carrying the new Galactic Council Charter. This document, Emma said, creates something new. Not an empire, not a hierarchy, but a true alliance. Every species equal, every voice heard, and yes, every technology shared, even the dangerous ones. Because trust isn't about being safe, it's about being brave enough to take risks together. She looked at John Martinez, remembering the pilots who didn't come home. We paid a heavy price for this knowledge. Human and alien alike, we lost good people. But their sacrifice means something. Today, we're not just making peace or forming alliances. We're building something that will last for generations. The chamber erupted in applause, hands clapping, tentacles waving, energy fields pulsing with approval. As Emma stepped down from the podium, Lisa Cooper rushed up to her. "Captain, the deep space sensors just picked up something. The Void Swarm left us a gift." She showed Emma her tablet. Far out in space, the swarm had arranged themselves to form giant symbols, coordinates to other ancient builder sites across the galaxy. Emma smiled. "Send ships to every location. Mixed crews, human and alien. Let's show the galaxy what we can do together." Outside Unity Station's windows, Earth glowed blue and beautiful. Around it, ships of all shapes and sizes prepared for humanity's next great adventure. They had faced extinction alone, but they would explore the future together. Because when no one else fought, humanity had not just unleashed their arsenal, they had unleashed hope for an entire galaxy.